tell me about your rating project, the Bumi project.
Yeah. Um, how much did you read of the materials that I
So
presented at the
I,
blog?
I read through each of the areas where you rated various teachers, and I read something of your Bumi maps.
Right.
Um, and so that's what I've read.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't entirely clear how you were rating them.
Yeah.
Like even though I saw the criteria, like some of these people, I don't know if you've met all of these people.
No.
Did you
No.
ever meet Deepa Ma or
No. 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 No.
some of these? Yeah, I thought you'd have to be old to have met some of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't, and that was actually the you wrote in your email about um, rating other people's attainments or practices,
Because I
and
get these questions all the time, right? People want me to help them
yeah,
figure out where they are or what I think's going on with their practice, and I've learned over the years that it's not as easy as I thought it was.
yeah, but the
Perhaps this is for me, but who knows?
but the question what arose in my mind based on your email was that how do you do it? How is it done in I suppose you do it as they do it in Theravada. So how it
Well,
is
actually,
done?
my criteria are a little bit different from some of the Theravada criteria, so I'm sort of an oddball in that I fall somewhere between Theravada and Sutra Mahamudra
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Dzogchen, sort of. But my primary criteria look like a weird mix of Theravada and Sutra Mahamudra.
Okay, right. And how do you do it?
So, in terms of talking to people and asking them what their perception of reality is, what they're capable of, what's changed, what it was like before, what it's like now,
Yeah.
with regard to things like perspective and agency and luminosity and sensorlessness, and as well as emotional resilience and other things. So it's sort of a complicated process of questioning. Um,
Right.
anyway, and then you also have to know the person because like the it usually takes some time to really actually get a sense of a person and how they use certain words and how when they say agencylessness or when they say luminosity or when they say spaciousness or when they say emotional resilience, what does that mean
Right,
for
right.
them? What are they actually saying? And so it's I've found it's actually much more slippery than I thought it was. So I was wondering about your methods and what do you
Right,
think?
right. Yeah. So so basically what you're saying is that or mostly the way how you do it is done verbally and by knowing the person as well as you can. So you know what they say and you can kind of map out based on your own experience what they are saying. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you must be using another method.
Right. Completely different.
Do tell.
Yeah. So you saw the diagram of the chakra slash bumi model.
I saw the thing that listed the Bumi models. It had the various levels, and
I will
so
take the
there. Let me
page.
make sure I've seen what it is you're talking about.
Yeah, just a moment. Yeah, so it's different. The with this system, it doesn't matter what the person says or doesn't say, because it's based on reading the person's. Maybe you could use a general description, reading the energy body of the person, and specifically not like aura reading, because I don't see colors or anything like this, but reading the energy body in a very specific way,
Hmm.
and that's a huge
And so
claim.
and you're talking about from photographs or from reports or from because some of these people might be people you have never seen, right? Or
Yeah.
do you see them on video, or what do you do?
Well, the most of the people in the Bumi series, I've only used photos, but of course it can be done in person as well.
Do
I
you find any difference between the two, or do you think they work similarly?
No, it should be the same. Only thing that can affect the photo is that all some cameras can kind of twist or distort the the energetic appearance. But
Interesting.
yeah, but this is I've noticed that in some pictures of the same person, even if it's taking the same year or same month, but some pictures there is kind of a difference in the way how the person looks, how he or she appears. But even then, when you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't the way how cameras can twist the energy. It doesn't matter. So it can still be done. Yeah.
I remember a friend of my friend Turin. Turin had a friend, and he had an interesting power. You could give him the name of any person,
Right.
and he would instantly spit out a number between 1 and 1,000. With 1,000 being as spiritually developed as you could possibly be, and 1 being as unspiritually developed as you could possibly be. And most of the teachers you would have heard of fell somewhere in the 300 to 700 range.
Yeah.
In his system, it was really interesting. He couldn't explain how he could do it, but you could just tell him anybody's name, and he would instantly kick out a number based on he couldn't say. It was just I just know. It was an interesting thing. I'm not entirely sure how one would verify the accuracy of the system, but it's an interesting thing to put out there.
Yeah. I have a friend who is a bit similar. He's a long time meditator. He's actually a follower of the hugging saint Amma.
Yeah.
And
who you gave your highest rating to.
Yeah. And he's also practiced like this inner martial arts and healing arts for several decades. And he's really a ninja when it comes to doing things like this. And yeah, so obviously it has something to do with clairvoyance with those people. That it can be done, tuning up like that. It can be done through a name or a term or whatever, to whatever thing, a holy place, a master, whether in the body or without the body, or any sort of things. It can be done, but it requires skill. I've also done it to some extent without any pictures, just using a name like famous temples, both in the east and the west, pilgrimage places, things like this.
How do you rate the places? Are you rating them based on their energetic quality, or what are you rating them on?
No, I wasn't rating. At that time, several years ago when I did that, I wasn't rating them. I was just, studying the energies and how it affects my mind state or awareness state. Because that's the key, right? It's not the energy trip. It's the how it helps one to know oneself as awareness. So yeah, it totally can be done. Have you ever tried it? Something like that.
Reading auras or reading things or reading into stuff.
Or tuning into holy places or masters who are not physically present.
So it's something that more happens to me when I am... Sometimes it just happens to me, like I'll be in a place. For example, I was in a very old Catholic church. I think it dates to the 1600s in outside of Taos, New Mexico. It's a very old adobe Catholic church. And I actually walked into their gift store, which was a small, very small sort of adobe place with a simple sort of, roof with these old beams and mud walls, and it had hundreds and hundreds of little pictures of saints. And I was actually struck. I was like, this is one of the most magical places I've been in years. Like, the sense of the power of the magic there was just stunning to me. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, what is it about this?
Right.
So I do sometimes get these impressions, but I very rarely go seeking them out intentionally. So sometimes I will pick up on things, or pick up on usually toxic energies as well. Like sometimes I'm just like, this place is bad. I need to go. Like, this is not good.
Okay.
So, but it's more spontaneous than cultivated.
Right. Yeah. I suppose that I haven't talked with so many tantric practitioners or tantric teachers from many traditions, but I've talked with some of them, and obviously tantric practice that I've done for a decade or so has to do with a lot to do with working with energy, both with.
What have you done? What tradition are you following? I've gone through some of your site, but I haven't gone through all of it.
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
So I used to practice many years. My teacher, who was American lady, called Sivakami, Sarah. She was a really. I will just mention a few things about her. There's also a text of her in my blog, but in case you haven't seen it, she was really a hardcore mystic, I would say. I mean, she was a virtuoso when it comes to doing things from distance. And I practiced and studied with. I was in a monastery, Zen monastery in Japan for a while, and went to study healing and meditation arts with several teachers and people who are regarded as masters of their tradition for a number of years before I got to know of Sarah, my teacher. And I was.
Where's she located?
She lived in Hawaii for the last 10 years of her life, but she was originally she was from Oregon, and she was just an ordinary person, a wife and a grandma, and she was a lay person for her whole life, a kennelist. She was actually a very, you know, she was a respected kennelist. She raised huskies and some other dog breed, I don't remember which. But so she was really good in this skill of sensing energies, rating them, working with different kinds of energies, passing initiations from the distance. Initiations being tantric initiations where you pass, like she used to teach in the Hindu context. So she mainly worked with non-physical masters who were from the Hindu orientation. So she used that language, but she also during the years she used to do astral projection and things like this for decades every night. So she was really skilled in that, and many teachers, non-physical teachers, came to her, and it was just so effortless for her, being able to do it in ordinary, when being awake during the day or in the night during the dream. And she was also offered teachings by Buddhist teachers. One of them was Lama Tubten Yeshe, who was in the 80s. Lama Yeshe was in between reincarnations. So that's when Sarah met her, and Lama Yeshe offered her teachings, but she never was really a fan of the Buddhist vibe, because Buddhist vibe and Hindu vibe there's a big difference there. So she always talked about the self and God, and she was basically a bhakta for her whole life. But she was extremely skilled in this working with energies, and she was mainly the one who also made sure that her close students learned the basics of working with masters who don't have a physical body. So I studied for a few years with her until she passed away in 2010. And also before that, for 3-4 years, I had in meditation, Tantric Guru Yoga is the main thing that I've done for about a decade now. Tantric Guru Yoga meaning that there's some spiritual master. It could be Shakyamuni Buddha or Padmasambhava or Machik Labdron, or Jesus is also a Mahasiddha if you ask me. So it can be done to any of these high-level masters and just tuning with them, like we talked either through a name or a mantra or a prayer, however you want to do it, or through visualization also. Visualizing oneself as the master, one's own body as the master's body. So, what was I saying? I don't remember where I was going to.
That's right. You were talking about how you had trained, and you had talked about teaching. She had taught you to work with non-physical masters.
Right.
That she had transmitted at a distance various things.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. But there was something. There was a point that I was supposed to get, but I forgot the point, so I'm lost now.
That's okay. I do that all the time. But, when it comes back, clue. So.
Yeah. But now I remember what I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
So if you open I put the link. It's the text Stages of Spiritual Attainment. You can find the diagram there at the lower part of the page.
Yeah. So you're just looking to see which chakras are doing what.
Yeah. So, still continuing of your last question, was that for a number of years I taught and practiced a particular system of Kriya Yoga, like a Kundalini Kriya Yoga, and that was passed to my teacher Sivakami from two non-physical Mahasiddhas called Babaji and Tirumular. You probably have heard of Babaji because it's the same Babaji who is in Yogananda's lineage, who is the founder of Paramahamsa Yogananda's lineage. Babaji, do you remember?
Babaji.
Yeah.
So it's not Punjaji?
No.
It must be another one. Okay.
It's with B, Babaji, B. So you know Yogananda?
Yeah.
Yeah, Self-Realization Fellowship.
So I don't know his organization, but Yogananda gets mentioned all the time. So
yeah.
Yes.
So three generations before Yogananda, that lineage was founded by a non-physical master called Babaji, Babagi. And this Babaji appeared to a Bengali man called Lahiri Mahashaya and passed him some teachings, and this Lahiri Mahashaya started teaching, and that's how eventually Yogananda got his teachings and so on. And actually Sivakami, my teacher, was first initiated through Yogananda's disciple back in 76. And it was interesting, I will just mention this briefly because it came up. So Sivakami at the time was 36 or 37 years old, and she had never meditated before. But the second time she sat down to practice those techniques that she, really simple breathing combined with mantra techniques that she learned from Self-Realization Fellowship, she went into deep meditation for 10 hours.
Wow.
And this lasted, in Finnish I always say samadhi putki, which means something like a continuous pipe of samadhi that she experienced for 4 months every night.
Wow.
The same thing.
Impressive.
Yeah.
So unnatural.
Yeah. And this made her, burned her karmas and made her an arhat level practitioner in 4 months. So anyway, I mentioned Kriya Yoga, and have you ever heard about these chakras above the head?
It's funny you mention them. So, in New Age, you hear about a chakra, sort of one chakra up here.
Yeah.
Right? So, 7th chakra, crown chakra. And then it's funny, recently, a number of people I've talked to, particularly some people who have been talking about theosophy, from Blavatsky and all that stuff, from back in the day. A guy named Logan, who I've been talking with some recently, has been talking a lot about extended chakras way up and way down and out, and big auric things that go on for, world system-wide things. So it gets so these elaborate extended chakral systems.
Yeah.
So I've been reading some about some various ways of thinking about those or talking about those. I'm not entirely sure what to do with them, but anyway, so I see your system. Curiously enough, it's interesting. I actually was just noticing the parallel. It's a curious synchronicity that your system would also have multiple extended chakras.
Yeah. So some guy in DHO was also mentioning Helena Blavatsky, but I've never. I know her name and I know how she looks like, but I don't have any exposure to her.
See, I knew very little about her as well. I mean, a little bit. You can't, help but know a little bit about her if you're in the New Age world. Because the Theosophists did a lot of important stuff in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I guess still do some stuff today. And J. Krishnamurti came out of them, right? They found him and trained him and thought he would be the new world master or
right.
savior or avatar or whatever, anyway. So, but I didn't know the fine details of the system, and still don't. Actually, I still don't know the fine details of the system, but I'm getting some of it in summary form. Their systems are very complicated.
Yeah.
Perhaps needlessly so, but maybe there's reason for it.
Yeah. So you're meaning that the energy systems are needlessly complex. What did you say?
Maybe. Yeah. So they're very, very complicated. All these different levels and sizes of bodies and associations.
Or you mean the system of the Theosophists?
Theosophists.
Oh,
yes,
right. Okay, now I understand. Okay, so back to the.
They also talk about chakras way up.
Right.
They also go way down as well. So they talk about this whole stream of them.
Right. So this is the chakra system that we use in open heart practice. And so basically there are seven chakra systems, both inside the physical body and above the crown. So first we have the first 7 chakra system between the crown and the pelvic floor. That's the most known one. Yeah. And then there's the second one, which is same in all the 4 limbs, which is, it could be, I often call it the subconscious chakra system. So the 7 centers in the limbs, in all 4. And then there's the third one, the 7 above the head. And the highest one of them is maybe 5-6 meters above the crown, which is how many feet? 5?
20 maybe. No, yeah, 20.
It's
something like that. About 20 feet.
Yeah, so 5-6 meters. Anyway, so it's pretty high up there. And the lowest one near the crown is that much, so it's like 10-15 centimeters. And then the in between, the centers in between are in steady intervals. Right? Intervals.
Okay.
And so why I'm mentioning this is that and as I've explained it in the text above this diagram, is that
you can look at a picture and see them or get a sense of which chakras are there, I guess.
Yes, you can, because this is Bumi, and Bumi means ground, which is like a ground or basis of attainment, right? So if you are trained to sense, perceive in that way, it can be seen where the ground is. And I've been talking this a lot with my close friends, my close students. We have a closed Facebook group where we check photos and think about these things all the time. And yesterday evening I was actually asking them, what is your Bumi? I used the picture that I sent you. And
what did they say?
And they actually got it right. Most of them got it right with the first try. And I didn't say anything to them about it.
And what did you think? I'm just curious. It's funny. What do you think?
Yeah. So in this Bumi system, and I think I've mentioned it in the text also, that you're the second Theravada-oriented fourth path Arhat person who I've done this to. Curiously, last week a Australian-born guy who studied with Kenneth Falk and also contacted me and asked, do you know?
Yeah.
I never heard of her, but was saying that was the one who verified his fourth path. So, yeah.
We have slightly different criteria. The Kenneth Folk kids and I differ a little on our criteria, but anyway, so.
Okay. So, whose student is?
Kenneth. She studied with Kenneth Folk, I think.
Okay.
Maybe Ron Crouch. I don't know.
Okay.
Who also studied with Kenneth Folk?
Yeah. So, this was actually also what I already talked about with my non-physical masters about the Theravada model and the Arhat level in relation to this Bumi system. And in this Bumi system, the Arhat level equals the 6th Bumi, which is at the crown. So in your case, in your picture, when was the picture taken?
Probably last year, maybe?
Yeah.
Yes, maybe a year or two, something like that.
Yeah.
Last year or two.
Yeah. So it's a very mature 6th Bumi, which means that the 7th Bumi, which is the next chakra above the crown, it will open in a near future. I hope. So it's pretty easy, it seems, with some study and orientation or it has been for my students to recognize the Bumis from the first in the eye level up to the sixth. Most of my students are in that, or all of them actually are in between those stages. So, they are in between 3rd and 5th Bumis. So they already they know what's happening with each opening with each Bumi, and so they can map it. But when it comes to the Bumis above the head, it becomes quite a bit more difficult, because what happens is that the quality of with each Bumi attainment gets very more subtle. So eventually there is nothing there to evaluate. So that's why it gets challenging to get the upper Bumis correct. And I also have to, when mapping these higher stage bodhisattvas, which means the bodhisattva Bumis are the 7th through 10th. So it's the 4 next chakras above the head, and then the 3 higher are Mahasiddha Bumis, master, full Buddhahood. So
where does this system come from? Because I'm used to 10 Bumis, but I've seen anywhere between 7 and 16 if you look at various texts.
Yeah, so I never studied, I went to different Vajrayana Rinpoche's weekend teachings, but I never studied this Tibetan Bumi model with anyone. The only reference to from a Dzogchen teacher is from a guy who probably doesn't want his name to be mentioned by me because he's very orthodox. But and his teacher, actually Tibetan master, attained rainbow body. But anyway, this American guy, I don't remember if it's in this text, but I was able to squeeze a little bit out of him, and he said that, I don't remember the exact terms what he said, but he said that in the Dzogchen model the Bumis mature in the central channel, And when the prana vayu, not kundalini, but when the prana vayu energy rises in the central channel, it opens up Bumis. So that's what he said. I can find you the exact code if you want, but he basically said the same thing. What I tried to say with this model.
Who was it I was just talking to? Someone said their teacher attained the rainbow body. Was it Churchill? I can't remember. Anyway, somebody.
So I was getting at. Again, I forgot.
That's okay. So you were getting at the system, the subtle bodies, people reading them developing, the energy moving up the central channel, and Bumi is opening up as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's important to what this guy, the Dzogchen teacher, was saying, that it's important not to mix this raising of energy with Kundalini or any kind of. I would actually not even use the term prana, because prana is, it can mean various things, and obviously how he used it was like in a very general way. He didn't actually mean the breath energy, prana. So so like I was saying that the way how I've taught using this Bumi model to people is that, and like I said, the first 6 ones are the most easiest to spot. The way how I've taught it is to, and there's actually a text about that too in there, but just to observe the person and see from which height from inside the head he is kind of looking out. From which height inside the head it's kind of open. Because the 6 Bumis are in steady intervals on top of each other. So it's kind of easy to, with a little study, to spot what is going on. And I think the most wonderful thing is that it's actually a skill, based on observation and study. So it's not like a crystal ball with lottery numbers, right? It's not random. So you can actually start to see the differences, how the person appears, what is his or her conscious experience, what is transmitted. So so basically nice. That's it. And like I said, when it comes to the upper Bumis above the head, then it requires the way how I done it or studied it years ago was that each of these 7 chakras above the head, I took one of them and meditated each of them for some time, going through the whole ladder to up and down. So just getting to know one's own chakra / Bumi system and then applying it to others,
That's sort of the standard method for all this stuff, isn't it? Initially we see the emotions or the colors or the energies in ourselves and then see it in other people.
Right. Yeah. And this is why I also, when guiding people to awaken, to verify it, I also ask verbal questions and ask for verbal answers, but it can also be seen from the photo, either with the first Bumi or any of the Bumis, if you got the skills.
Nice, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Now I noticed there's a bunch of people that you didn't rate. You put their picture.
Yeah,
I have no rating. Are you waiting to rate them?
Yes. I didn't have time. Like I said, it requires, when doing the Bumi mapping of others, and especially when you have to focus really carefully with the higher Bumis, it kind of heats up the body, so you can't do it very long.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because it requires, it's intensive. So I left the pictures waiting there for next week or something like that.
Now, are you doing this because you think it helps people find a good teacher, or because it helps people figure out whose stuff to read, or because it helps people to there must be a practical goal.
Yeah.
So what's the practical application?
Well, yeah. So we are talking about the range of spiritual attainments, right? Range, the scale of it. So, and yesterday I added to the Bumi Study series I added the part of before and after awakening pictures.
I saw those actually. It's interesting. It was interesting to look at them and see, how do they look different? How do they look the same? Sort of, it's interesting. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Right.
Did you notice any difference?
So mostly I noticed the eyes looked different, and actually the facial expressions often looked somehow more calm or more neutral, and even some of them looked sort of slightly more serious, perhaps, or focusedly serious or something.
Yeah,
I did notice something different.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning this before and after awakening thing because as I've defined it and how I presume that what Theravada stream entry also means is that it's the first Bumi on the eye level, which means that the sense of solidity to one's sense of subject self, it loses power. So, but to answer your question, I think it's just a good way to study the full range of spiritual attainments, from pre-awakening, pre-stream entry to arhat stage, bodhisattvas, different bodhisattva stages, and then to full masterhood, full Buddhahood. So in that way, I think it's very, very useful, and and when you study it enough, you can map yourself, obviously.
And you think you met to the 8th, is that right? Is that I remember?
Yeah, I'm at the 8th now.
What's different about it? How do you know? What changed? How do you feel the difference?
This is interesting because I was reading Patrul Rinpoche's explanation of the Bumis. He lived in the 19th century, so a while ago. And he was talking about the Bumi system that he was familiar with. And just like you have criticized the traditional Theravada fourth path descriptions,
yeah,
I've read some parts of your book, which is great, by the way. And I was asked by a friend,
thanks.
by my good friend, I was asked to thank you for MCTB.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm working on the second edition, so
yeah.
I hope it does something useful for somebody.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear what you think of it practice-wise, because it sounds like you have sort of a different take on things.
Right.
You have sort of a more Dzogchen Vajrayana influenced take on Vipassana.
Right. Yeah. But I was saying...
Go ahead.
I was saying... I don't remember what I was saying.
So I was saying, I asked you what was different. What was different about the eighth, and you said you were reading a 19th century master.
Right. Patrul Rinpoche. So, with merely verbal descriptions, there's also the problem with describing experiences, and especially Western languages, because it's so, it's blunt, very blunt, and kind of clumsy. So, yes. What is different from, let's say, from 6th to 7th to 8th Bumi? My Bumi is now kind of a mature 8th, going 9th later this year, but here comes the difficulty, because I could only kind of say 6th is pervasive and subtle, 7th is more pervasive and more subtle, and 8th is even more pervasive and more subtle. So,
all right.
this is
I've gone through a lot of interesting shifts over the years, so I don't have any problem with that answer. It doesn't bother me.
And somebody was asking this in the DHO about the verbal descriptions of these stages, and I suppose it could be done if I was very skillful in descriptions, a poet or something like this, and if I was up for it. But it's difficult. What could be the best way of saying it is to somehow give people tools to try it out for themselves. And you can of course emulate each of the Bumis. Just put your attention to any of the Bumis and just let it open. And it maybe not first time, if you're a Theravada guy, it doesn't open up. But
I'm actually a weird fusion of things. So
That was
an odd mix. My practice has got some complicated influences, but anyway.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of Theravada influence.
Yeah.
True.
Just a little joke.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but how it also could be done is that if you know where the centers are, you can do it by if you want to give a number for each level, like 1 through 6 and 7 through 13, you can, like we were talking about these clairvoyant guys who can use words and terms and names for tuning to things. You can do it that way, but this could...
Well, actually, when I state shift, like when I want to go into a specific state, I literally just say the number and watch my energetic system shift to that state.
Right,
so
right.
That's actually normal practice for me.
Yeah, good. And another way...
Jhanas and jnanas and other things, so...
Yeah, you probably have to be very skilled in doing that. Really know how it works from inside out. And you being an arhat, you already,
And also, it helped me that I practiced that way for a long time, even long before that.
So, right. Yeah.
Learning to call up stages by name and number.
When did you begin to practice?
2000. Well, it depends on when you call it. I crossed the arising and passing way as a teenager.
I remember, yeah.
Just trying to have flying dreams. And ended up traveling out of body and crossing the horizon and passing away. But in terms of really formal practice, 1994 was my first retreat when I really started practicing a lot.
Yeah, so 22 years ago.
Yeah.
About.
Almost.
Yeah. And when did you get to fourth path?
2003.
So 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there have been some interesting state shifts since then, actually. Some sort of refinements and subtle integrations and other interesting things. So
yeah,
it's all interesting stuff. It's not static. I mean, there are aspects of it that are the same, but there are other aspects of it that can clearly continue to sort of progress in some way.
And do you mean, in which sense do you mean that? Which aspects? How?
So I think I appreciate more of what it is. So it's a strange thing to say. Like, what happened in 2003, like when the center point dissolved and untangled, and everything was just aware where it was, like the sort of real localization of awareness, or the all-pervasion of awareness, or however you want to say it. The lack of centralization of awareness, and instead the awareness being in the space, or in the things, or in the whatever. This is where the black is. You know what I mean? The black is not here, the black is there. So that happened and stayed that way. But appreciating aspects of what that sort of means and what that is have continued to unfold. It's been really interesting to see. Like, the thing is the same, but the appreciation of it, the really sort of like, oh yeah, or the sort of watching it move through old karmic patterns has been interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Particularly as some situation comes up, or some emotion or something that hadn't come up before, or hadn't come up in a very long time. And it used to come up, before 2003, it would come up and it would be like this, and maybe it hadn't come up in a long time. But now when it comes up, it's coming into a totally different space and sort of perceptual mode. And so it's been interesting to watch those patterns be transformed by a really different way of viewing awareness, attention, in reality. And also the magical stuff has continued to slowly deepen my appreciation of energetics. I actually do see some colors, so and I see more of them, but it's sort of a slow process. Like I see more colors more often the longer I do this. I started to see emotions in colors sometimes, and sometimes seeing auras around patients even, and sometimes seen and felt things, like sometimes felt things in their bodies that I shouldn't be able to feel, and but it's sporadic. It's not random, but it's not all the time. But there's more of it. So it's been interesting to watch more of the energetic and magical aspects of things. The energetic aspects, the colors, the energies, the qualities, sort of become more and more a part of what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I was asking that because I was saying the subtle, more subtle, even more subtle, this processing. And my experience was that I actually posted a new video to my YouTube channel yesterday because of the process. I filmed these 15 serious videos during the last couple of years of my, Bumi progress. And so my experience has been that there is, the higher one gets in the Bumis, and this was also my experience from the fourth Bumi, I think, up. So it's prior to Theravada fourth path. I don't know I haven't mapped what are the second and third paths, but it should be something between the second and fifth Bumis, something like that. So
I don't know if the way I think of them, I think of second path as someone who really has a real sense of phenomenology, of fine parsing of moments of experience, of subtle appreciation of the fractal nature of moments of mind, of they've got profound analytical abilities, and their emotions are usually moderately transformed, a lot moderately more resilient. They tend to have a lot greater control. Like you can teach someone who's second path to get into really subtle states of mind, really with a lot more control than somebody who's a stream enterer. It's just a lot easier to teach them to really tune the brain various ways. They're just much more fluent. It's much more natural. Whereas for me, third is like the field and the breadth, the width, the light, the luminosity is a really important, becomes, as third path sort of deepens, becomes a really important part of experience. But there's still that annoying, subtle, centralized something.
Yeah.
And it can get very subtle, but it's still there, like a gnat or a gadfly. There's still some contracted warp and space somewhere in the middle of their being, wherever they, somewhere in there. Like it's like on some little point that's still trying to pretend it's the center, or the owner, or the doer, or the controller. Just really subtle. So that's what I think of as third path.
Right.
Fourth path is when that really is gone. Like that's just not happening anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
My way of thinking of it.
Yeah, and it sounds familiar. Sounds familiar to me also with those in between Bumis. So what I was saying, that my experience has been that from the fourth Bumi up, the higher it goes, and I of course have a lot to go from here where I'm now. So the more subtle it becomes, the more pervasive it becomes, kind of more natural it becomes, and more, it requires more time to get integrated. The maturing kind of slows down, and there is also maturing or progress, not only from number 6 Bumi to number 7 or 7 to 8, but even inside the Bumis.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are kind
Makes
of these small revelations inside the Bumis, and I think that in the model that we use in open heart teachings is that there are 13 Bumis, but because there are these insights happening in these higher Bumis inside them, it could be also divided into many more stages. But you have to. This system has a correlation to the chakra system, so that's how it that's how we do it. In relation to the energy body, so it's easy to follow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good. So it's interesting. It's been interesting to watch some of the controversy that you created on the Dharma Overground.
Yeah.
So whenever some new person comes in, it's interesting to watch everybody. I'm sorry you're having to go through that in that space.
Yeah.
Because it's a little strange, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, I've seen it on different areas also, and of course, making the claims that I do and rating these, hugely famous His Holinesses. Of course, it raises the hair in the back of the head, for some people.
Well,
and
it's putting my name out there is
the
same reactions. Like when I used to go on Tao Bums, or I used to go on Western Dharma Forum, or some of these earlier sites, that weren't really into talking about high-level practice, and I'd say whatever I'd say, and all the lightning bolts would come out.
Yeah.
And people would be, throwing flamethrowers at me and grenades, and it's just what it is. And so it's always, so it's been interesting to watch you coming in there. And I thought, I've got to get to know this guy. He sounds interesting.
Yeah, a total disappointment.
Well, no, not at all, actually. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. So, fascinating.
May I ask? I'd like to ask a few questions. We were talking with who I mentioned earlier. About he said that he knows I think he said that he went to some, was it Buddhist Geeks conference in US a few years ago, I think in 2013, and he got to know 6 other fourth paths there, and he said that he has been in connection with those people, not lately, but getting to know them some. But do you have an estimate how many people are fourth paths? How many people do you know?
Well, the problem is we don't always, even though we're all very close in some ways, we don't always entirely agree on the criteria.
Okay.
Which is sort of annoying. So the standards are a little bit different, and that gets into some very ugly politics.
Right.
I'd love to try to stay out of.
Right.
But in terms of people who think of themselves as fourth path,
okay.
I know probably, what's my rough guess? Probably 10, 12?
Yeah.
Something like that, at least on those forums. And then when I think about the rest of the world that are not on the Dharma Overground and sort of outside of that clique, I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, I don't know, maybe how many do I know? Maybe 20?
Right. Yeah.
So something like that.
So you mean people who you actually know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it would be, you mentioned this, the difference in criteria. So it would be interesting to have the photos of all these people and check through my criteria.
That'd be fascinating.
Yeah, it would. It really would. I was thinking this immediately when I said this.
I can't tell you how funny I think this is, actually, because the map stuff is such an issue. Like, as one more person who's really, because I'm like, okay, here's a guy who's really willing to get in there and put the numbers out there and state his opinion. Man, this is going to be a hoot. Like,
yeah.
These battles can get so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, people can get really into this stuff. So just, you're gonna... I Anyway, I wish you luck.
Yeah.
I hope you have some strong magical defenses, because it may take them.
Yeah. Surely.
Because, we get into this stuff with each other, right? So it's
Right.
years and years and years of us battling back and forth about the criteria, about who's got what, who we think has who, and
Yeah.
And luckily, I rarely get into that much anymore.
Yeah.
You're just starting it all up again. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what comes out of this. And while in the short term there was a lot of pain, in the long term I actually think good things did result from the discussion.
Right.
So maybe it will do something useful.
And this actually this issue of mapping attainments. We were talking about how this Bumi model of mind, how it could be used in different ways. So, obvious reason is to map yourself, know where you're at and where you're going. That's the most important. But also, however, difficult and unpleasurable it might be for people to have their respected lamas and his holinesses and all these rinpoches and whatever mapped out. I think it's, from my point of view, it's a healthy phenomenon. There is so much this vague stuff about different teachers, masters, teachings, where they take you or where they say it will take you, and then people don't know where the teachers really are and whether this master, this very high lama, is actually a really valid master or not. So this is something that I see very important, because I also spent a considerable time of energy, time and devotion with really bullshit gurus. So and it really hurt, it hurt.
Oh,
yeah. So I think there's a very healthy side to this, but of course, unfortunately, it also raises the back of the neck, the hair in the back of the neck for some people. But I hope that some people will kind of understand it, try it, and start to use it for everyone's benefit. I don't care if it's called Kim's Bumi model or Open Heart Bumi model. Just use it. And now that I said it, I was immediately thinking of trademarking it.
Hey, trademarking's been big on this.
I wasn't serious. So it's
no, but some of them are, so it's what's so funny.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I was really happy to I was sending you the request of using your photo in the series, and I was really happy to get the request for having this session. I also
glad you were willing to talk to me as well. It's funny, like some of the people who show up on the Dharma Overground, when I say, "Hey, I want to talk to them," they're gone. I was like, "Oh no."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you so
yeah.
far.
Yeah. It's kind of I don't know so many people. I've talked with many people, but I don't know so many people who would be open or eager to, really experienced people who would be open or eager to kind of try out what I'm saying with this Bumi model. And
so I'm an experimentalist. I'm a pragmatist.
Yeah.
I care about effects more than I care about anything else, more than I care about traditions or people or anything. And I do care deeply about the maps.
Yeah.
So it's always fascinating to learn another person's map.
Yeah.
I'm a map fanatic.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting to hear someone talk about it and their criteria and how they do it. And so I'm very thankful. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Nice. are there stage specific practices? Meaning, if you identify that someone is in a particular Bumi, do you then have specific advice you would give to them because they're at that Bumi that you would not give at a different place?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Yes.
Um,
And obviously, I'll bet it's a big topic, which I don't have the time for.
I will just,
yeah.
I can cover it in a minute. There is the what I'm working with now. I was talking about this with because he was asking the same thing, being a fourth path Theravada, and has been for three years now. I think he has been. He was kind of at first he said that he didn't feel like studying any maps or models or in any way, but later it became obvious to him that there is something further to go, like you have also said. And actually Patrul Rinpoche was also in his Bumi model, he was referring to these subtle obstacles that bodhisattvas still have, kind of this subtle processing. So what I've been
called karmic habits and old energetic blockages. It's there's still stuff to integrate.
Yeah. So I was talking with this with another Chokchen guy who is also a teacher of Chokchen. He was also a teacher of some Vajrayana lineage, but I don't remember which one, and he doesn't either to mention his name. But he was talking about this in Chokchen. They use this term called kun chi. I write it in the window. Kun chi, which is a Tibetan term. And Chigme Limpa, who was a very famous Tibetan master, I think 100 or 200 years ago, said that this kun chi, this what's the English word for it? It's kind of this interface of your own subconsciousness in connection with the collective subconsciousness, which deals with the kind of this energetic ring that is connected with the fingers and the extremities of the limbs, all four, and which is kind of this dark or black hole that's beneath the root chakra. It's this, I call it an interface of collective subconscious. And even though you don't have the dualistic programs going on in your own body anymore, this is how I've experienced it. This interface, which is outside in the energy body, but it's in the energy body that is outside the physical body space. So it kind of, because you're in connection with humans, collective subconscious, so it's collective, it's connected with other humans, other kinds of beings. It kind of breathes energy or puts energy into your own subconscious. And it might, when I noticed this happening, at first I was thinking that didn't I purify my own karmic body after all? But then I figured out that it comes from somewhere else. The energy comes from somewhere else. It's not my own subconscious emotions and thoughts becoming active. It comes from somewhere else. And at that time I was talking with this Chokchen guy about this kun chi, and that Chigme Limpa had said that this kun chi is something that advanced yogis get stuck, but they are not yet full Buddhas. Something along those lines. I don't remember the exact quote.
Okay.
But so for a couple of years I worked with a lady master who is well known in the Tibetan tradition, Machik Labdron. she's the founder of Chöd, Mahamudra Chöd, which is like this. She used to 1,000 years ago, when she was in a physical body, she used to talk about demons, and it's kind of this shamanic dharma that she taught at that time. And Mahamudra Chöd nowadays is taught in all 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism. And that's, by the way, Chöd Mahamudra is the only practice of Buddhism that was founded inside Tibet. Everything else was brought to Tibet. Anyway, so Magic Labdron has given me and my wife, and I passed it to some of my students who are already in that stage that they can benefit from it, use it reasonably, that this Kunzi, this interface of creating subtle obstacles in the body of an arhat or a bodhisattva, there are practices that how you can speed it up. And this Kunzi is neutralized when hitting the 9th Bumi. Yeah, so I've kind of not that, like I was saying, not that the subtlety and the clarity of awareness has become more pervasive and subtle with 6th, 7th and 8th Bumis. Also there has been progress with working with this interface of collective subconscious, which will become neutral in the 9th. So I'm really looking forward to October, November this year, when my 9th is supposed to hit.
Now, that's interesting. How do you know that date, or the general time range?
Well, working like I do with Magic Labdron and some other masters occasionally, there is a possibility for conversation. So they have given me the estimates of how long it can take, and October, November this year is the estimate for my 9th. And I actually, when I got stream entry in November 2011, it was quite late. I had already practiced 8.5 years before that. But when hitting stream entry awakening in that session, I had also a mystic experience with a particular deity. And in this experience I got to know that in 2.5 years after that, in the summer of 2014 in July, I will hit 4th path, Arhat.
Nice.
Get my mind purified, and it did happen. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really interesting. It's been great talking with you. I actually would like to keep talking. But
Yeah.
Get some sleep, or else
Yeah.
if I don't get enough sleep, people can die. So
Thanks, Daniel.
Cool. Let's talk again sometime.
Yeah, will do. Have a good rest.
All right, you too.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.